Seattle's a growing city, and those new residents need to live somewhere. Where do you support density? Where do you not support density?
Let me start by explaining one of the ways that I think that we can best address the density issue. We have this really great process called the neighborhood planning process, in which the city goes to each neighborhood, speaks with the leaders there, and they sit down and together the city discuss the general common requirements that everyone who lives in a city has. And the neighborhoods talk about their ideas, their issues, their desires for the neighborhoods. And put that down on a piece of paper, and it's supposed to be a guideline by which the city begins planning things like zoning and density and transportation. I don't feel that these plans, and many of the neighborhood leaders don't feel that these plans have ever actually been followed.
We're just blowing up here, excuse me. Sorry.
Vibrate.
No.
And I think that what we would find if we actually started, Seattle is one of the most civically minded cities that I've ever seen in the entire world. People are literally chomping at the bits.
I want to make sure your answer to this question is not that the neighborhood should decide their future, because what I'm trying to get at is your policy views on density.
Okay.
Which, if it's the neighborhood should decide, then we can move on.
Then we can move on.
I've got a question for you, related. You're opposed to legislation allowing backyard cottages to be built in single-family zones, correct? How do we increase density in the city of Seattle?
It's basically this is the million-dollar question for the next several years. Is we've got a whole bunch of people that are either going to be born and live in the city or want to move to the city. Where are we going to put them? One of the reasons that I mentioned getting the neighborhoods more involved in the planning process is I think we have started our zoning process here in Seattle a faulty concept that one size fits all. That's not going to work. The geography is different based off of each neighborhood, and if we're going to require zoning in one neighborhood and another one that doesn't fit, then it's not going to work. In some neighborhoods, having a cottage in your backyard not only would work, but is extremely welcome. In other neighborhoods, having a cottage in your backyard means every time you go into your bathroom, you've got to make sure the shades are drawn because you're literally 5 feet from somebody staring in your window.
I guess the follow-up is, why would the change in zoning impact that scenario? I guess the question is, if you don't want someone 5 feet from your window, you wouldn't feel the need to build the actual cottage, correct?
Well, it has to do with the neighbor. What I'm looking at right now is, even with just the townhomes, an individual who bought the land that their house is on has been there for close to 10 years, is realizing that within the next year, they're going to have somebody literally staring down at their house at all hours of the day and night. Yes, that is something that comes along with city living. We're not in the country. You're not, a mile away from your nearest neighbor. But I think that there are better ways that we can zone specifically in neighborhoods to accommodate situations that are developing like that. There are some areas that literally are literally begging and welcoming density. They want more people because that neighborhood literally thrives off more people. There are some neighborhoods that they already have that space, and so to fill that space would just destroy any actual elements that have already been in place in the neighborhood. So it might sound wonky and typical politician to say that I want the neighborhoods deciding their fate. It's not that, it's a partnership. It literally is going to take city officials coming to you and saying, so you're living here. What is it going to be like if we zone this area so that somebody's going to be living above your house and staring down in your window?
The follow-up to that is neighborhood groups could be so vocal or use different means in that process to have a small majority of people who have a protectionist idea of you know, this is my backyard, don't come in here with your policies, I don't want my neighborhood to change. Which then means we don't have enough density for capacity for mass transit, not even, you know, decent bus service to that neighborhood. And so then we're, in that neighborhood that's within the city limits, we're encouraging them to have more than one single occupant car, and then we're changing the rest of our city so that we're trying to, you know, support other means of transportation. I mean, that's what's wrong with Seattle, is that you have these systems that aren't working. And so your answer sounds like you're protecting single-family zoning.
I can see why you would say that.
Could you see it? Could you tell me how I wouldn't see that, or what you would do to change density in single-family neighborhoods?
Well, I guess considering I'm the one being interviewed, is your plan for the entire city to not consist of a single-family home?
He's like, well, you asked the question.
We're looking for offering transportation choices.
Right.
To different neighborhoods. Current zoning does not allow density in certain neighborhoods. There's candidates running that are trying to protect the single-family zoning codes, and I'm trying to determine if you're that kind of candidate or not. And right now, it sounds like you are.
I see. Well, let me back up and try to explain it a different way. At present, there are single-family homes in Seattle. Now, we can go through the long process of forcing that change of every single-family home out. Or what we can attempt to do is find a balance, to find a way to accommodate individuals, neighborhoods that are solely based off of single-family homes, and neighborhoods that are already dense and are welcoming density. And while the loudest and vocal groups in a lot of neighborhoods tend to be labeled as NIMBY, I started my activities being first labeled as a NIMBY. So I understand what it's like to bear that label, but it's important to remember that there are more people in the neighborhood. A good example of that is what happened in Ballard with the Denny's that they were going to tear down. Now, they never once said you can't build your apartments and condos here. It was preserve the building, we'll help you find another place within the neighborhood to build it. I feel that if we were to actually open, you're right, a lot of candidates are talking now about let's open dialogue and talk with the neighborhoods. If we were to actually sit down and formalize a process that worked, I think that we would find a lot of those individuals who get out front and start getting to scream and yell because they're being ignored, disappearing, because we'll find people stepping forward that are actively wanting to be engaged, that understand that living in a city means that they have to bear a certain shared burden with everyone else that lives in the city, while not coming across as being pushy and forcing any of the changes on people. I mean, I completely understand. We need more transit and we need more density in the city, but we will not accomplish that successfully by going in and tearing down every single family home around the family that built that and has lived there potentially for several generations.
I guess the question is just, would you allow for policy changes in neighborhoods that have single family zoning to allow more density?
Yes.